Welcome everybody to Top Lines Live at 5. My name is Brian Devine here with Top Line, and today we are going to talk about salesmanship. Yes, sales in your practice. This is something that I talk about a lot. And I'm sorry, I'm realizing that my audio is probably a little bit too strong, so hopefully that's okay. The reason that I'm talking about salesmanship and the fact that every single person in your practice needs to understand that they are in sales is because we are in a world now where there is a tremendous amount of competition, and more competition is coming. It's not reducing, it's getting harder and harder to capture and keep those patients. And one of the things that should be done in every practice to ensure that you not only attract, and keep those patients is for every single person to understand that every communication they have with your patients is a sales communication. And back in my days of going into hundreds of offices year after year, one thing that I talked about a lot is the idea that sales is not a bad word. So if you want to call it something else, please feel free to call it something else. You don't have to call it sales if somehow that makes you uncomfortable. Now, what I would usually talk about in the offices where I'd come and we would do lunch and learns and all that great stuff is to ask if anyone is either married or ever been on a date. And hopefully everybody at that point has raised their hand and said yes. And the reason I was asking that question is so that the follow-up is, and were any of you selling in that date or to get to the point where you were married? And that's when everyone gets a little uncomfortable, because the answer is yes. If you've ever put on makeup, you are selling. If you have ever talked about what is important in your life, you are selling. And again, if you just feel like sales and selling is a bad word, call it something else if that makes you feel better. The point here is that everything that you do in order to get the date, in order to get the second date, to get to the point where you are married and have a wonderful, happy life, is you are selling yourself to the other person so that they want to be with you. And that's what we're doing. And again, call it something else if that makes you feel better. When everyone on your team is on the same page and understands that every communication that they have with a patient is a sales process, then what happens is your entire system now gets really solid, really clean, and really clear, so that your patients have an amazing experience from start to finish. That first initial phone call is probably the most important call that your office is ever going to get. And if the person who answers the call takes it like a transaction, you're in trouble, because another office is going to hire somebody that is going to treat it like a sales call the way that it should be, and is going to treat them with care, is going to make sure that they feel wonderful, and is going to follow a certain script to ensure that they come in, and that is where the experience starts. All right, so again, that first phone call, probably the most important phone call you can have, and it cannot be transactional. You have to really make sure that that is a sales call, that the person answering the phone knows that's what it is and is trained on it. Then the patient comes in, hopefully. Right now, obviously, I hope you have systems in place and steps to follow in order to get them to come in, because that's harder these days than it's ever been. Now this person who is going to greet the new patient has to understand that that is a sales call, because this person has come in now, they've taken time out of their day, they've come out of their way, they're uncomfortable. Now you have to make them feel great about being there. And there's all kinds of things that you can do there. Following a script helps. But again, treating it like a transaction is a problem, because that means that when I come in and I offer some great special holy smokes offer to get them to go to another office, guess what? Because they didn't have a wonderful, incredible experience at your office, they're very likely to take that offer and go somewhere else. And you don't want that. So make sure that you are thinking through that process, that you have everyone that will actually talk with a patient understand that they are in sales. And if you want to talk about some other word other than sales, feel free. But usually when you explain to people that everything about influence, about getting people to like you, to feel good about you, to enjoy a process, that is essentially sales. That's what good sales is. Bad sales is making you feel gross and slimy. That to me is not sales. That's gross and slimy. Good sales is when you really create that experience, you do everything you can to give that person what you know that they need and what is going to be good for them in their lives, and that's how everybody wins. So again, make sure your entire team knows that they are in sales. Now, if you have somebody that's maybe in a lab that isn't ever going to interact with somebody, maybe they're not in sales and they just need to do their jobs really well for you. However, I want you always thinking about that process. So how are you handling that in your practice? I'd love to hear about it. Let me know, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Top Lines Live at 5. That's it for me. Bye for now.